Today, we are breaking down CBS's brand new 2026 NFL mock draft. Let's get right into this. Blow my boards, my face. It is based on all 22 grades. Players with a plus are pretty much unhealthy. Players with an asterisk are those who are bound to drop with reevaluation. But I ended up debating whether I wanted to do a CBS mock draft this week. You guys know I do this all the time, but I just wanted to go and check it out. And, I ended up seeing it was Ryan Wilson's because if I'm going to be honest, Ryan Wilson and Mike Renner are the only ones that I really would consistently go after. But I'm curious to see. I know this was uploaded before this week's games, but this is being recorded after. But it's intriguing to see that John Mateer, even with the hand injury, was so close to the top. But let's get right into this. The number one overall selection, they got Dante Moore going to the Jets. This past week definitely ended up showing that there's a lot more to grow with Dante Moore. 0 big time throws, 2 turnover worthy plays. I'm going to have the stock report out tomorrow morning. Actually, the graphics are being made right now, but I wanted to get the mock in so I get you guys some content rather than 2 days of nothing. So it's a good way to kind of hybrid the two together. But Dante Moore not throwing a big time throw in a key loss that was pretty close. A little bit concerning right there. And like we were talking about how well he performed versus Oregon. However, or not versus Oregon, versus Penn State. However, not really looking like Penn State is the poster child of NFL translatability. Granted, their defense is much better than how their offense performed. That's a conversation for tomorrow, though. But Dante Moore, I still think that, as he continues to pick up his stride, I think he can end up bouncing back, and that might be even more valuable than him just having a consistently solid year. So we'll see how that ends up working out for him. But starting to believe that it's best for him to stay until 2027. Pick number 2, the Bengals go Ruben Bain, Jr., edge rusher out of Miami. While losing Trey Hendrickson, definitely think this would end up fitting a little bit. The problem is I do worry if Ruben Bain Jr.'s arms are anything really larger than 32 inches. Arm length does not look to be an asset for him. He's not an explosive RAS guy, and that usually are two of the things that the Bengals look for organizationally. But when you are sitting here at the top, sometimes you just got to go with your gut and go after the best player available, which Ruben Bain easily could be assumed as the best. It's just, for me, I think translatability to the NFL, he's still a fantastic player. I just still believe that there are some athletic traits that maybe limit how damn good he could be. While I still think, he is my number 10 player in the class. I think he's a damn good player. Number 3 overall, we have the New Orleans Saints going Peter Woods, defensive interior out of Clemson. He is much better than Brian Brzee. I was not a Brian Brzee guy. I'm a huge Peter Woods guy. Do not sleep on Peter Woods. He is a fantastic player. I think this would be a very solid foundational piece there for the Saints. At number 4, we have the Panthers going Keldrick Falk, defensive end out of Auburn. He ended up having a pretty solid showing this past week with 4 pressures, but I would end up saying that Keldrick Falk has not shown the high ceiling that I think a number 4 pick needs to have. He's a very solid player. I think of him more as a mid to late first round type of guy that, value-wise, he should be a late first, but the consistency would be, very valuable on its own. So he's more of a floor player, and the Panthers obviously winning today, they're not going to be here, but I definitely think that Keldrick Falk, edge rusher prototype, doesn't necessarily fit athletically with what they're going to be looking for. He's not necessarily Nick Scorton in terms of the athleticism, even though you look at the height and weight and it's pretty similar. They play very, very differently. So pick number 5, the Giants go Spencer Fano. I know a lot of people really do like Marcus Bowe, friend of the show, by the way. You guys can go check out the interview that was on the show. Spencer Fano's a fantastic offensive lineman. Marcus Bowe, a lot of people think that he can end up being the starting tackle for the team in the future when Illuminor ends up saying peace out. I'll just say this. Marcus did end up allowing 9 pressures the one game he did start at tackle. There's definitely a lot of room to grow there, and I love the potential he brings. Obviously, love the character he has. It doesn't stop me if I feel like there's a legit upgrade on the table. Now, Spencer Fano has definitely taken a small step back this year, but I still think of him as one of the top offensive linemen in the entire class. We'll see how that ends up shaking out while guys like Tiernan continue being reevaluated because this past week he allowed 3 pressures versus Penn State. We'll see how those quality of pressures are because I do know that certain guys like Preston Stone, don't make it very easy for tackles to necessarily maintain a solid pocket boundary. But regardless, I definitely, if the Giants believe that there's room for improvement, this is the class where you need to take it earlier rather than later. At number 6, we have TJ Parker going to the Tennessee Titans, edge rusher out of Clemson. TJ is a really good player. I think of him a little bit more as a later first player with the upside of a mid first. And if you take him in the top 10, I'm not going to blame you. I would just start being really concerned in the top 5. So I think this is just like the top of the range where I feel like, okay, that's fine. He ended up having only one pressure this past week, a little bit of a down performance in that regard, but I still see him as somebody who has taken steps forward. And if he continues that path, being well worth this pick. At number 7, we have the Las Vegas Raiders going Fernando Mendoza, quarterback out of Indiana. He did not have a great game either versus Oregon. He got the win, but he definitely did not look great. The game versus Iowa as well was really sloppy. I am a bit concerned about how sure we are on these top quarterbacks. Like, there is some room, and I was a Fernando Mendoza QB3 guy, still am. Well, technically, John Mateer, his ass is going to be moving down. Because his dumbass ended up returning from hand surgery way too early. We'll get to him potentially, I assume, because based on this being released before the Red River rivalry, we'll see. But Fernando Mendoza for the Raiders is a solid option. We'll see what happens, but Mendoza right now is the QB1 in the driver's seat. LaNorris Sellers also in there based on, if you actually watch the games rather than, look at the stat sheet, you'll realize that Sellers, a lot of times, there's definitely some issues he's had that I didn't expect for him to have at this point of his career, like, intentional groundings. But like for LaNorris, my biggest thing for him is just realizing how bad the situation is around him and Nick Harbor. It's not pretty. It's not pretty at all. And I see guys like Fernando Mendoza being able to drop the ball off in the flat to Roman Hemby, and Hemby looking like an absolute beast. Like, no disrespect to Faison. It's just there's a difference, and the offensive line is different. Mendoza has a left tackle in Carter Smith that is performing at a super high level. Granted, I don't think he's an NFL tackle, but I think he's amazing in college. Like, there's just not that for Sellers. So I do think Sellers will end up still being my number 1 quarterback, but it is just going to be a lot lower certainty than what we had that gut feeling for. But Mendoza at the moment in the driver's seat for QB1. Caleb Downs, defensive back out of Ohio State, going to the Dolphins at pick 8. He ended up having a pretty bad week this past week, as a matter of fact. 4 defensive stops. I'm already spoiling my video, by the way, but there's a lot more to it that you guys can go and check out. But he ended up allowing a good amount of yardage, and it's a little bit concerning. I mean, especially in a game where they ended up dominating, but we'll see what happens. I'll dig into the tape and understand why he ended up having a pretty, no pun intended, down week. But it's still one of the top players in the class, if not the top guy. Just a lower value position. If the Dolphins want to just start going after best player available, that's far from a bad idea. At number 9, we have the Browns going CC Mauigoa, right tackle out of Miami. After seeing Jack Sawyer blow up the right tackle consistently when he ended up going in, and that's Jack Sawyer, there's going to be some issues that need to be ramified. Is that even a word? Yeah, I know ramification is, but regardless, there needs to be some stuff changed on this offensive line. So Francis Mauigoa could end up being that option. I'm not there with him as a tackle. Still trying to get there, but we'll see what the arm length is come postseason. Jeremiah Love, running back out of Notre Dame, goes to the Arizona Cardinals at pick 10. Just depends on how Benson comes back from injury, how much confidence they have in Connor, because they do need running back. And this is possible based on the fact that Genty and Hampton ended up breaking out. So like when you end up seeing that happen, RJ Harvey have his moments and all that, it does kind of counter the claim that at the start of the year, you're like, we might not see running back very high for a long time. But this is a clear 1 in the class. I love Damon Claiborne, but I do think Jeremiah Love, especially with the production and the health, has ended up taking a little bit of a jump. At number 11, we have the Titans. What the hell? I was thinking of Vrabel. The Patriots going Jordan Tyson, wide receiver out of Arizona State. Jordan Tyson's the best player in the whole entire country at wide receiver. And the sad thing is, it's not by a big margin because we just have a lot of damn good wide receivers. Tyson's been training with Hines Ward It looks like it. He's a fantastic receiver, and the Patriots could absolutely use someone with his skill set. A+ move right there. At 12, we got the Rams going Mansour Delane corner out of LSU. Absolutely locked down this week, especially in the crucial moments. Big win there for LA. I definitely think they can end up getting better and better in their corner core. At 13, the Bears go Colton Hood, defensive back out of Tennessee. I think it's a little early for Colton. He's a very good player. I like him in the latter half of the first round. Still a very good player who's taken a massive step up. I would almost ask for him to stay one more year, but I don't think it's necessary. I think it's a lot more necessary for Jermod McCoy, who's going to then have a full year under his belt before going, or like a full year of recent tape under his belt before going to the NFL. Colton Hood's been fantastic, but I also don't think the Bears, as much as I've taken corner for them in the past, I think that I overvalued how much they need to go after it. At 14, we have the Cowboys going Avion Terrell corner out of Clemson. Does not fit the corner style that they've been drafting recently, but if they end up saying we want a dog on the boundary who is pretty much Jair Alexander, Avion Terrell is far from a bad option. It looks like Ryan Wilson is a little bit more of a quarterback or cornerback freak, and you know what? I am one too, so I respect that 100%. At 15, Jaden Maiava, quarterback out of USC, goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's big, has a big arm. He kind of feels very, very similar to maybe a little bit less athletic, but slightly better processing version of Taylon Green. And he's taken a big step up this year. A couple games last year, one good, one awful. Like, there's definitely some balance that is needed, but Maiava definitely has taken the step forward this year. And we'll just see if he can continue keeping the turnover-worthy plays low. He's been making some ridiculous throws, but I just don't think they translate to the NFL at the rate that they've been hitting in college, and that's what worries me a little bit. But Steelers need to go quarterback. This class is littered with them. And I'd personally just say at this point, go to day 2 because there's going to be good players available there. At 16, we have Caden Proctor, tackle/super weapon out of Alabama, going to the Houston Texans. He's way too raw, but at least has had a good game at tackle so far for Bama. Fun to just see him utilized everywhere, but a lot of people also think of him as a guard. I guess this is just a team where it's probably hard to get a downgrade. So, if that's your mindset going into it, then I'll end up respecting it. And they do seem to value measurables. So it is possible. At 17, we have the Minnesota Vikings drafting Mekhi Lemon, wide receiver out of USC. I do think, especially if you end up trying to deal Jordan Addison, there's a chance that this would be an amazing fit. Obviously, also former USC wide receiver. Mekhi Lemon is a dynamic weapon. He has been able to carry USC a lot this year, even in contested catch situations. He's been fantastic. At pick 18, cornerback A.J. Harris out of Penn State goes to the Seattle Seahawks. I am not a fan of that. I don't think A.J. Harris has necessarily been very good this year. And it's like almost contrary because a lot of people have faith in him. I personally had him as cornerback 16 coming into the year. And that includes some hybrid defensive backs. So, maybe cornerback 12 or 13 coming into the year. So it's not like he's bad, but it's just far from the level that people think of him. And he has not performed very well this year at all, in my opinion. He hasn't been targeted very much, but it's not because of the fact that he's been absolutely locked down. When he loses, it's bad. That's the thing. There are some really bad losses on tape. And cornerback is a position where if you're going to lose well. And that's why it's I'm not a huge fan of it. I have to do still my re-evals and stuff. But, based on what I saw last year, there's some good and then there's some really, really bad. At 19, and then for the Seahawks, I just don't want to roll the dice on something like that in 18. At number 19, we have the Cleveland Browns going Carnell Tate, wide receiver out of the Ohio State University. He's up there with the best performing receivers in the country. Granted, again, you could see still that the focus is on Jeremiah Smith. We have yet to see a tailored game to try to eliminate Carnell Tate's role, but he's been fantastic, especially near the sideline. So that's really good to have with pinpoint precision quarterbacks. At pick 20, we have Kenyon Sadiq, tight end out of Oregon, going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He had a hot start and has definitely kind of taken his foot off the gas pedal a little bit. But we'll see if he ends up continuing to expand his role back to what we know. Almost had a huge play this past week where he ended up slipping a guy who was tackling him near the sideline, couldn't keep his balance and stay in bounds. Otherwise, that would have been another big moment for Kenyon Sadiq. At number 21, we have Caleb Banks, defenseman tier out of Florida, going to the Denver Broncos. Just way too many injuries for me to trust him going remotely in the first round. I don't know if he's going to go on day 2 based on the fact he's not putting up any tape right now because of all the injuries. We'll have to see a very good end to the year. Measurables are great, but production is king. The best ability is availability. At pick 22, the Commanders go Denzel Boston, wide receiver out of Washington. I've not drafted like a wide receiver like Denzel Boston to the Commanders, but I would love to give Jaden Daniels the opportunity to have a receiver this reliable. I think it would be a fantastic move. Honestly, I've never done it, but I support it. At pick 23, we have Jermod McCoy, cornerback out of Tennessee, going to the Indianapolis Colts. A corner or two is definitely on the radar for the Colts. It sucks that you guys ended up losing Javarius Ward today to a concussion in warmups. I did not see the clip of that, but it's definitely interesting. But I definitely believe that, a boundary corner makes sense. I don't think that Jermod McCoy really fits the identity that Lou Amarino is going to try to bring here, and especially with only like half a year of tape, if that. It's going to be a little bit concerning seeing him go in the first round after we just saw, Will Johnson slip for some injury issues and stuff. But, Jermod McCoy doesn't have the same level of issues, but he also doesn't have the same level of talent. At number 24, we have the Rams going Ty Simpson, quarterback out of Alabama. This feels very Jimmy G, Baker Mayfield, like that. It feels like the backups the Rams have brought in. And not saying that's what Ty Simpson is a backup, but I'm saying the style. Like the starter for the Rams, since God, we're just talking about Stafford here, but in recent memory, where the Rams have had the most success have been through Matt Stafford, who is a completely different style of quarterback. But the consistency has come not just from Matt Stafford, but having those reliable backups in there. Very similar to how San Francisco, who we'll talk about soon, has had Mac Jones to be able to keep the consistency with Brock Purdy. I would still want the Rams to go after more of the gunslinger for Matt Stafford to be able to work with. At 25, the Niners go Trevor Gooseby, tackle out of Texas. We'll see if he ends up being worth this selection. He's had an up and down year, down in some pretty key games. So we'll see if that's worth it. But I need to do a reevaluation on him. If it ends up working out, that's a great spot for him to go. You guys know me. I'm a huge supporter of the Niners going tackle. 26, we have the Chargers going Mateo Uyunglele, edge rusher out of Oregon. After trading for Odafe Owe, I just doubt this is going to be their number one position to target unless they end up just letting him dip. That's a choice that they can make. Mateo still has shown a pretty big lack of ability to stop the run on a consistent basis, and that's a bit of a concern for someone who's in the 270 plus range. At 27, the Baltimore Ravens go Romello Height, edge rusher out of Texas Tech. My only concern here is that it's a very similar role to what Mike Kareen is supposed to be doing, and I'd be preferring to stop the run over trying to just continue to rush the passer. I do think this is a little bit, and Romello's been fantastic, but just for the Ravens specifically, I'd be going after a little bit more of the run defense heavy type of edge rush. At number 28, the Chiefs go Antonio Williams, wide receiver to Clemson. He had a really good week this week, so I'm excited to see him bounce back finally. But, we'll see if he's going to be worth it in this range, how the health is going to hold up. But really dynamic receiver. I have him right now as a round 2 grade. At 29, and this is not going to happen because Arvell is going to go much higher than this. We have Arvell Reese, linebacker out of The Ohio State University, going to the Dallas Cowboys. He is also not just a pure linebacker. I think it's a little disrespectful to have him in the latter half of the first. I think, God forbid, a season-ending injury would be the only way he slips to this point. He has been fantastic so far. At 30, we have the Titans going Caleb Lamu via a trade-up with the Detroit Lions. Intriguing. I don't understand this. Lamu high upside athlete. What? Are we just getting rid of the guy we just paid in Dan Moore? Granted, I'm not a Dan Moore truther here, but definitely don't like this move because you're trading up with a team that should be going after a wide receiver at this point, right? You ended up going after I believe edge earlier in this mock draft. So with TJ Parker, I don't understand why you'd go after offensive linemen here when your wide receiver core is so ass, and you still have some guys like Chris Bell available if you want to try to target somebody in this range. At number 31, we have the Browns trading up for John Mateer. After this week's play, which again, this was before it, Not going to happen. I'm pretty sure he's going to stay. I mean, it's so obvious. He should redshirt the rest of the year and then get healthy. That's just my God honest take. Like, he was dumb as fuck to try to come back from a thumb ligament injury, and then he's bleeding from his thumb during the game. It's like, you are just so stupid. I hate to say it. You guys see what I thought of Mateer. It's just so dumb. Like, dude, it's not that big of a deal. It's unranked Texas. If they beat you guys, which they did with you, if they beat Oklahoma without you, you'll drop to 15. And it will be like, oh, well, you didn't have John Mateer. Just like really bad decision making right there. When you go into surgery, do not play a football game 17 days later, especially when it's on your throwing hand. It's just like, what the fuck, man? It's really bad. And at 32, we got the Bills going center Connor Lew. Oh, cool. They actually had a pick here for the Lions, and I think the Eagles as well. We'll talk about those. Connor Lew, center out of Auburn. I'm not sure if okay, so there's you guys, the center is on the last year of his deal. So honestly, not a bad pick. High floor center. I'll leave it there. Solid pick there. Lions end up trading back and going Dalen Everett. He had 3 pass breakups this past week, but I'm just going to be honest. He feels like a day 3 pick to me at this point. I mean, he's been pretty damn bad, and he's targeted 10 times this past week. Luckily, he got 3 pass breakups. Eagles end up getting R. Mason Thomas, edge rusher out of Oklahoma. True DPR. I think they need to go after someone a little bit more balanced than that, but R. Mason Thomas was a top 10 edge rusher for me coming to the year, and has been fantastic. So that's going to be the mock draft. Thank you so much for watching. Show the support you always do. I'll see you later. Peace.